So, good evening to one and all, and welcome to this 13th episode of the PGC Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Saurabh Kaura, and I'm a coursework officer on the Postgraduate Council. The Postgraduate Council is a student body that represents, supports, and advocates for all the postgraduate students. So, if you have got any questions or concerns, please reach out to us at any point of time. And I would like to start the podcast series by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands where each of our UNSW campuses are located, and all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past, present, and emerging, and also their communities who have shared and practiced their teachings over thousands of years. We recognize the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' ongoing leadership and contributions, including to business, education, and industry. So today we have got Vintii Vasundhara Aggarwal as our guest speaker, who is also working as a work readiness program coordinator at Outcome.life. She is an alumni of UNSW Business School, as most of us might be familiar with her, and has recently studied a Masters of Commerce degree at UNSW. She is also running an exciting initiative called Hi Vintii for all the international students on LinkedIn. So keep an eye on that, and I'll be telling you more about that. And she will be telling you more about that when we ask her about specifically about that initiative. She was also selected as one of the nominees for the prestigious NSW Student of the Year Awards in 2020 at UNSW Sydney. And also just remind you that this podcast is not only about Vintii and myself, but it is for everyone who is listening to us either through Zoom or Facebook Live, or probably watching the podcast on our YouTube channel later on. So as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to raise those questions throughout the session, and I'll be taking those one by one. Before we begin this podcast, do you know any UNSW student who has been doing a spectacular job in academics or extracurriculars or volunteering? Or do you know about any staff or course coordinator who, according to you, has taken some extra efforts to make a student-friendly study environment at UNSW Sydney? Well, why am I telling you all this? Guess what? PGC has decided to reward all those spectacular students and course coordinators. We are organizing this mega award ceremony on the 30th of September, where the winners will be awarded from the Deputy Vice Chancellor of UNSW. So do apply for these applications if you consider about a student who has done a spectacular job as a student, or a student course coordinator who has contributed towards making a better student environment. The applications are currently open and they will be closing soon on the 31st of August. So don't forget to nominate someone for these awards. Now, coming back to this podcast, and the topic of this podcast, which is on this popular student-friendly topic of how can they increase their chances of getting employed in various firms. I thought of calling Vintii as she has been guiding very well on LinkedIn, also through Facebook, to a lot of her colleagues, and she has been successful in doing that. So to start off with, Vintii, I would like to understand from you, what is your perspective on the current employment situation in the market, and how do you think the students can better prepare themselves for that situation?
Sure. So the current employment situation in the market is very different to what it used to be in the pre-pandemic era. However, what is interesting is that the media constantly talks about the loss of jobs. No one is talking about the splurge in opportunities. Now, those opportunities may be different to what they used to be, but they still are there. And they have grown in ways we can't even imagine. Think about it. Now, the world has become one big digital family. There it's more easier to start businesses, side hustles, creative projects, to solve problems, to learn new things. I could learn something from someone sitting in America. Easier now than it has ever been. Even before the pandemic, there were online courses, but it's more easier now because everyone have come online. You could be living in Sydney and working in a company in California. So my take on this is the world of opportunities has in fact expanded. We just need to tweak our way of looking at careers and employability now. And if you can change your perspective, you will realize that it isn't really as bad as it is being made out to be.
That's true. What do you think has dramatically changed, as you were saying that the things are not as similar to what they were before the pandemic? What do you think have been some of the major shifts in the way employers are looking at your profile or recruiting you, specifically in Australia and possibly in other countries, if you have knowledge about countries like India and the students who are coming from Southeast Asia or other countries?
So what has changed is that now the way of working has become hybrid. And if you're working in different locations, 100% remote. Now, what is different is that remote work was not as prevalent as it is now, which means the need to be able to communicate clearly, accurately, impactfully has become even more important. So even for students who are looking to enter their careers, it is very, very important that they are able to communicate clearly. Because no more is the supervisor or colleague going to be next to you, reading your body language and analyzing your words from various different perspectives. It's what you communicate is what's going to be understood. So going back to your question, what has changed is the fact that the need for communication to be crystal clear, precise, impactful is more important now than before. And to be able to work by yourself, to be able to bring your own motivation to the workplace, not rely on other people providing that energy to you. All that has changed, really. Now you're in control of your own destiny and you need to bring your own energy into your career.
Sure. And Vintii, since you have been a very proactive student when you were at UNSW, I would also like to know, and continue in continuation with what you have raised just now, that communication skills are very important. So probably from your own experience, would you like to describe to the students what were the different experiences that you went through while you were studying at UNSW, and what can they do in a virtual environment to develop those communication skills?
Sure. So when I was at UNSW, I was very fortunate because half of my degree was face-to-face and the second half was almost virtual with some exceptions. So I had the experience of having both. So I am in a good place to be able to guide you and the students as to what they can do in the face of lockdowns and virtual education. So what I did was I attended every networking event, workshop, webinar, talk, industry talk I could possibly fit into my calendar. I used to mark my calendar with lectures and tutorials, and every single hour, besides that, if something is happening at university, I don't know about anyone else, I will be there. And it was very hard, I will not lie. I almost burned myself out, but that gave me an edge because I understood a lot of things about the Australian workplace culture, about how the job market works very, very quickly. And what was your second question? What can students do in a virtual environment? The same thing. Just because these events are not happening face to face, is no reason for you to not attend them. They are happening virtually. In fact, if I am being very honest, they are happening twice as many virtually, because it is more easier for organizers to now just have a Zoom call really quickly, snapshot 30 minutes, and then have another for 30 minutes, and then have another. There is no setup time, commuting time, and all those time wastages. So go to these events, go to workshops, go to webinars, and please turn your videos on. That is an opportunity for you to network. By having your videos off and listening to it like a video, it's helpful, but you're missing out on the full benefits that experience can give you. So just put yourself out there is my key piece of advice to all graduates and students.
Sure. And also, I would like to ask you, Vintii, one of the best things of you, when I have also attended several events together with you, is that you're excellent in following up with the speakers after the online events or offline events. And that is a particular thing which I have noticed is missing in a lot of students. So what would you guide them in a sense that they should follow up with the speakers and network well with them and stay connected with them even after the events are over?
Absolutely. Very well said, Saurabh. A lot of students, specifically coming from cultures where it is not common, feel that, oh, the speaker or the panelist will not respond to my message, or they believe that they are not important enough, or their message will get lost in a pool of messages. Believe me, stop assuming. Just reach out. What is the worst that can happen? You will not get a reply. Nothing beyond that. So get out of your comfort zones and learn the different way of working. Australia is a very different culture. People are far more outgoing. People don't mind helping out students and graduates. People don't mind answering questions. If you ask a valid, viable question, they don't mind helping out. Take advantage of that. Living in your cocoon, in your shell of safety and comfort, will help till a certain degree. You're not going to be able to grow the way you probably aspire to by doing that. So it is very, very important to follow up with the panelists, with guest speakers, appreciate them, ask them a question. If you don't have a question, just a word of appreciation, connect with them, constantly engage with the content they are creating on LinkedIn. That is how you build your networks. And networks is very, very, very important to grow, progress, start your career. No matter where in the career pipeline you are, networks are key.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, Vintii. One of the other questions that I might also want you to answer is related to this fact that you mentioned of comfort zone, coming out of your comfort zone, which is easy for some of the students, but difficult for the other bunch of students as they still feel hesitant about talking to other people about their country, or probably they're a bit hesitant because they cannot communicate well in the same language as the other person. Do you have any advice or tips, or probably sharing from your own journey, looking back when you were going through a similar experience and you came out of your comfort zone? So what were the things that you did?
Sure. I think the first thing I would like to say is a lot of these things that a student feels, oh, my English is not good, or I'm not comfortable, it's all in the head. It's all in your head. You are relaying information that you believe is true. A lot of times when you reach out to other people, even with imperfect English, they understand. They understand English is your second language. They are not judging you. English is not a measure of intellect. It's a language. If I start speaking in French, believe me, I will not sound smooth at all, but that does not mean I'm any less than another French speaker. In the same way, if your English is a bit short, does not matter. Don't be so harsh on yourself. You're learning a new language. It takes time. And for the fact that they are shy, it's all about baby steps. It's possible. Okay? Take baby steps. Probably start with networking with your immediate classmates first, then your professor at university, and then probably speakers at your university before you feel comfortable reaching out to strangers or businesses. It's all about taking baby steps. There is no magic formula that I can give them. Now, what did I do? I just push myself. I tell myself all these things that I'm feeling, oh, I'm not good enough, or they will not answer. They are assumptions. They are not proven. They will be proven only after I attempt it. So why not attempt it? So don't live your life based on assumptions that you're making in your head. Get out of your head.
Absolutely. I think taking those baby steps can really help them to at least move from the level that they are currently at to the next level, and then to the next level, and then to the next level. And that's how they can focus on it. I think that's an absolutely wonderful advice, Vintii. Another major thing that you just touched based upon was the component of networking and how important it is for international students to network both professionally and socially when they come out of their own country to a new country with new environment, new people, new culture. Any tips or anything specific that you did when you arrived in Australia? Maybe you were part of different clubs or different programs. I know you were part of Heroes. So probably looking back at your extracurriculars and linking it to this networking component, would you like to speak something on that?
Sure. So what I did, now let me share a very startling fact with you. When I came to Australia, I had only 24 connections on LinkedIn. In India, I really never used LinkedIn. And coming to Australia, I attended one of the sessions at my university, UNSW, the very first week that I was here. And that's where I learned how important LinkedIn is. And that's it. I made myself a profile. It was not perfect, but I did not let perfection stop me. Creating a LinkedIn profile is a ever-changing, evolving activity where you keep learning and keep upgrading and changing your bios and improving the language of how you explain your past experience. Don't wait for perfection, but always keep improvising. Don't create it and then forget about it. So very important. I created my LinkedIn profile and I started taking baby steps to add my classmates, my group mates, any activities I joined at university, volunteer groups I joined at university. I would add the leader of the volunteer group and my teammates who were volunteering with me. This is how you network. This is how I network. So I would network face to face and on a digital platform as well. So I was creating relationships with them two ways. So even now, when I'm in lockdown and we connect virtually on LinkedIn or other platforms, that connection that I made in person helps. And there are people I have met virtually completely. The fact that I'm constantly touching base with them, that helps. So no matter what you engage in, competitions, volunteering, professional development groups, projects, just go out there and meet people. Don't stand in a corner waiting for others to come and say hi to you. It's up to you to go and say hi to others and see who you vibe with and who you connect with and just take it from there.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful advice, Vintii. One of the questions coming in the comments section on Zoom chat is, that the student is studying from their home country, Egypt, and they are looking forward to apply for a job in Australia remotely. So, do you have any tips for students like them who are studying from their home countries and probably want to start off with some sort of internships before they arrive in Australia?
100%. It is very, very possible. More and more students are doing it. Two things to keep in mind. First, the time zone. You could be anywhere in the world, but if you want to work in an Australian company, it's important that you are able to meet their starting and end time each day. So that you have to adhere to their time zone, the Australian time zone. The second thing, it also depends on their specialization, which is not clear to me here. Some professions cannot be done virtually. There is a face-to-face component to those professions. There is it's just the technology is not there to be done virtually, or the work requires use of machinery or your body, your hands, and so it can be done virtually. If your specialization is, okay, healthcare management, if it is something that Australian businesses can handle virtually, then 100% there is nothing stopping you from doing that. Now, how to get started? You could go through an internship provider to get you started, which is the easiest and the safest way to go about it. Because in an industry like healthcare, when you approach companies, it probably is hard to get into.
Absolutely. I hope that answered that particular question. Probably now we can also touch base upon your initiative, Vintii, which is Hi Vintii. So I would leave it as an open-ended question to you to describe to the audience what this initiative is all about and what are the different benefits that you have provided to various students till now. And yeah, some of the frequently asked questions that you have been getting from international students, because those questions can also be the questions of our audience today.
Absolutely. So I started this initiative because I came to Australia absolutely alone and learned every single thing by myself and the hard way, by attending workshops, webinars, talks, and any career related events my university was holding, or even on LinkedIn when everything went virtual. And in March 2020, when Sydney was in a lockdown for a very brief amount of time, I started attending all those sessions on LinkedIn. Now I learned all the things like how to get a job, how to network on LinkedIn, everything, you name it, I learned it. And then I noticed that students are struggling with the exact same things that I struggled with. And I felt like there is no helpline to help them. Now, there is a career counselor for someone who's looking for career counseling. There is a therapy for someone looking for an emotional sort of thing. But there is something in between, which need not be as refined, where it could be a peer-to-peer support from someone senior to you, someone walked the same path as you. And I thought I filled that gap. I'm sort of like a senior in Australia who's walked the same path they are on. How about if I could answer their questions based out of my experience? So I was very clear in establishing that I am no expert. I'm just someone who can guide you based on my experience. If it helps you, great. And fortunately, I have helped a lot of students and have got some really great feedback. So some of the questions that are most frequently asked are around networking, are around understanding the culture. A lot of students, after they send their resume, they don't know what to do. They think that not hearing back from a company is equals to rejection. Not really. Companies can be very busy. Follow up. Send them a follow-up email after a week, a very polite one. I know someone in my network who got a job 6 months after they applied, and the company had forgotten about them. See, they just have one role, and there are 25 people, let's assume, or 50 people who've applied. That does not mean you're bad. It just means there was just one position. Now, this person kept in touch with the company and would send a follow-up email, a polite follow-up email a couple of times in a couple of months, a gap. And 6 months later, that company saw the initiative that student was taking in reaching out, called them and gave them the opportunity, just like that. So following up is important. So what I was trying to say was, these are the kind of things that international students don't know because it's different to their culture. And so these are the kind of questions I answer and guide them on. And it's really simple, really. It is not rocket science. It's just they don't know about it. And I can tell them based on my experience.
Absolutely. Also, in continuation to our last questions, to the different job networks available in the Australian industry. Generally, when international students come to Australia, they're only looking to target through Seek or Indeed. That's what they hear from the UNSW careers team. And by default, that's what they keep on doing. And they apply for so many jobs. And out of that, probably they get one accepted. But there can be several other ways, as you just said, that's what networking brings into the picture. Through networking, you create new opportunities. So what are the other ways of capturing those job opportunities? What kind of events? I know you have touched base upon the networking part, but what kind of events exactly can really help them? Or, companies like you, Outcome.life is doing an incredible job of filling that gap in the last few years. So maybe you want to comment on that, Vintii?
Sure. So besides job boards, which I do not recommend, it is highly competitive to apply for a job on a job board. Every job receives 300 to 400 applications. There's almost no one gets employed. Like if one person out of 500 applications get employed, then statistically speaking, no one gets employed. So the other ways of going out and getting job is your own initiative. When you're going to talks, webinars, your industry networking events, virtual or face-to-face, go and meet people. Have your elevator pitch ready. Your elevator pitch is something very simple. What you want to do, your skills, what's your aspiration, and what are you passionate about? Something really, really simple. Practice your elevator pitch in front of the mirror. You can Google this term elevator pitch. You will get a lot of examples. Just go out there, meet people, take their contacts, get in touch, build a rapport online. Do not treat people as I need something from you. Give value. If you can connect that person based out of that conversation to someone who can add value to them, do it. You will be remembered for the good deed that you did. So networking events. The other is internship placement providers. There are specialized group of companies in Australia who do this. A fabulous way to get into the job market, especially in industries where students struggle to get into. These placement providers can really help you and support you and handhold you and make you understand what is probably missing from your list of things to become job ready, and they can fill those gaps for you and prepare you on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, on your skills, communication skills, workplace culture in Australia, networking skills. They will handhold and support you, make you interview ready, and then ultimately give you an internship and then make you job ready to start your career in Australia. It's a very powerful way to kickstart your career in the country.
Sure. And just for the people who have joined us through Zoom or Facebook Live, we have already had 2 episodes before. One episode was with Professor David Cohen, who is the academic board president at UNSW. He told about those key tips as to how you can create a unique value proposition for yourselves as a student in job interviews. So do look at those episodes. There was another episode that was broadcasted last week with Mr. Kumar Arja. I think you might be knowing about him, Vintii. He's the CEO of Opportunities Australia. And there also he talked about different opportunities, which opportunities Australia will be coming up in the coming times. So just referring to those episodes because you raised this a key point of doing well in the interviews. Do you have some specific advice for the students as to what may they be doing wrong during an interview, or what can be some of the key tips for them to create their unique value proposition?
Specifically in the interviews. So show initiative. A lot of students feel that graduating from a good university with good grades is enough. Sadly, it is not enough. Employers in Australia do not look at your university ranking or your grades to determine if you are employable. There is something more that you need to bring to the table. Initiative, communication skills, being able to participate in a project or create your own project and be able to present it is very, very powerful. For example, a marketer did an analysis of a company's website because that marketer was very interested in building websites and pointed out all the mistakes in that website that could be corrected, and created a very fabulous report and sent it to the host company, and said, this is what I created for you. I hope it helps you. Boom. Who do you think, looking at that report, that company realized the loopholes, and who do you think that company would want to work on their website? The person who figured out those loopholes. So taking initiative in this way is very, very powerful. And this initiative could be taken in a lot of industries, having a portfolio, having an analysis, writing a critique, and being able to share that with the companies is more powerful than telling them you graduated with a BAM of 5 from the best university in Australia. Show initiative during your interviews, what you created, what are the solutions, what was the problem you were solving. That is powerful.
Absolutely. And if I look at my clock, I can see that it's time for some Q&A from our audience who have joined us today. And it's a great opportunity for you to apply all those skills which Vintii has been telling you in the last half an hour. Turn on your cameras and ask questions. The floor is yours. So do you have any questions, Nicholas?
Hi, I actually do have a question. First of all, hi Vintii. It's nice to finally see you.
Absolutely, lovely to see you.
Yeah, thanks for replying to my message. I just saw it. Yeah, thanks for having me. So I actually have this question, which I find myself it happens to myself pretty often. So I know that applying jobs through Seek and Indeed would give you a lower chance than in LinkedIn. I know that showing your initiative on network on LinkedIn is a more effective way of getting yourself a full-time job to create your own network. But I sometimes find myself always to reserve back to the thoughts of applying to Seek and Indeed. Again, it's like going back to my previous mindset, mainly because not mainly because, but sometimes it's because of people around you, they do the same thing, or sometimes it's just because you're not really seeing any results. So you tend to lean towards those who you think you would see results because other people are doing it. So my question will be something, what is your advice for people who just have those thoughts like going back and forth like that?
Okay, fabulous question. So Nicholas, my question to you is, since everyone else are doing it, if you do it, aren't you jumping into a more competitive space?
Yeah, that is true.
Always do what others are not doing. You will have an edge. Another question. So the others who are doing it, are they meeting with success?
A few.
A few.
A few, yeah.
I'm glad you are honest. So a few are meeting with success, but a few are not, which means there are other possibilities. So if you are oscillating between doing other things and applying on job boards. I would say do both. If you're not able to choose one thing over the other, do both. Make sure you're covering all bases. If something does not work, you got to try new approaches. If you are reaching out to people and not hearing back from them, analyze, what are you writing to them? Is your message standing out? Is your message clear? Tweak your message. Try a different subject line. Just always analyzing what is not working and improving is the key to hitting jackpot. Yeah?
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
No problem.
And also, I think it's about creating your own story, Nicholas. It's not about seeing probably what others are doing. The story of others can definitely motivate you to do better. But then at the end of the day, it's all about understanding and self-introspecting what you are good at doing and how can you link it up with the different opportunities which are available in the market. If you're looking for some other opportunities which are not your interest areas, you might keep on applying for that, but you'll not get that because you're not able to match them properly. That's what I feel, just to continue where Vintii left. Okay.
But that was a great question.
Absolutely. There is another question or comment in the Zoom chat, which is, if we are not in a rush to work during lockdowns, how do we approach employers to ask for in-person employment opportunities?
Big mistake. This is a very big mistake. If students feel that they don't want virtual work and they only want face-to-face work, they will have to wait forever. The way of working has transformed forever. It is going to be hybrid, a combination of remote and face-to-face. Do not wait for the perfect setup. The world of work will never be what it was before the pandemic. The change is for real. If you continue to wait for that, the wait will be very, very long. I highly recommend you to adapt and improvise with the new way of working. Let me give you my example. I live in Sydney, and the company I work with is in Melbourne. 92% of my team is in Melbourne. Only 8% is around, is across other parts of Australia. I have never felt left out. I've learned the entire business virtually. I don't feel like others get opportunities that I don't. I get equal or even more opportunities sometimes. Virtual work is not a disadvantage. It's a belief that it's a disadvantage. It really is not.
Absolutely. Wonderfully stated, Vintii. I hope that answers the question on the Zoom chat. And would also invite other people to ask any questions. We have got 6 people on the, obviously 3 are already on the screen. Other than that, 3 more people. If anybody wants to ask any question. So we have got another question now, which is from Rehab, which says that are online degrees of less value than on campus in the view of recruiters?
Okay. Degrees don't have any value. What you do with the knowledge that you acquire has the real value. Whether you've learned it through a degree, virtual or in person, or you've learned it by yourself, watching videos or reading books, it is absolutely immaterial to an employer. What an employer looks for is what you bring to the table. Your initiative, your skills, your ideas, your solutions. How you acquire those insights and ideas and knowledge, they really won't bother. If you do a simple Google research, you will see so many people doing fabulous in life are high school dropouts, which goes to show how irrelevant a degree or a certificate is. Do them to feed your hunger for knowledge. Don't do it as a badge that you have to flaunt. I hope that, yeah.
Absolutely. One last question, Vintii, before we might think of ending this podcast is, for anyone who has joined us late on Facebook Live or Zoom, would you like to share the top 3 tips coming out of this 40 minutes of discussion?
Sure. Number 1, communication is key. Learn how to talk about your skills, your aspirations, and your passion. If you can learn that, you will have an edge. Number 2, network. Get out of your comfort zone. Meet new people. Learn new things. Have a growth mindset. Number 3, do not wait for perfection. The world has changed. Adapt your way of thinking and see the new possibilities and new opportunities. If you wait for the pre-pandemic way of living and career progression or jobs, you will be waiting forever to change your mind, to change your life.
Absolutely wonderful tips, Vintii. And with this, we potentially come to an end to our 13th PGC Weekly Podcast. And on behalf of the entire PGC team, I would like to personally thank Vintii for taking her valuable time today to join us for this podcast. And also to everyone who has joined us through Zoom or Facebook Live, or maybe watching our episode on YouTube channel. We also hope to see you all at our next podcast, which is on the topic of tackling the traumas faced by the Afghan woman. It's a mega podcast episode with eminent speakers, including the Minister of Women's Affairs from Afghanistan and Ambassador of Afghanistan to Sri Lanka coming to that event. So again, a great opportunity for you to meet new people and talk to them about issues which matter you the most. It's going to be a collaborative episodes with UNSW Postgraduate Council, Student Representative Council, UNSW Women's Collective, and Afghan Women on the Move coming together for that episode. And also on behalf of the entire Postgraduate Council team, I would like to wish a very happy Independence Day to our friends from Pakistan and India, who will be celebrating their 75th year of their independence from the British rule tomorrow and day after tomorrow, respectively. There is also a mega celebration to celebrate that Indian Independence Day, which begins at 6 p.m. on Sunday. You can find the details on the page of UNSW Indian Society. And on this note, I would like to say a goodbye to you all from Vintii and my side. Stay safe and have a good night, everyone.